And you all know, today we are here for a short session for the subject MSME. ये नाम तो सबने बहुत सुना है, लेकिन इस्तेमाल बहुत लोगों ने नहीं किया होगा. But I'm very sure this year in the month of February, every individual came across this name because most of us have made prepayment to our creditors before time because of certain rule imposed by the government, and many of us were quite worried कि ये MSME है क्या मैं MSME में रजिस्टर्ड करूं अपने आप को, न करूं, इसके मेरे फायदे क्या है, नुकसान क्या है. तो हम लोगों के पास कुछ ऐसी रिक्वेस्ट आ रही थी कि इस सब्जेक्ट के ऊपर कोई नॉलेज सीरीज में हम लोग सब्जेक्ट आगे बढ़ाएं. एंड वेल प्रपोज्ड बाय आवर सेक्रेटरी श्याम अग्रवाल एंड आशीष टुक द ओनर्स की भाई आई विल टेक द क्लास ऑन दिस सब्जेक्ट. So let's straight away start with the topic, and best of luck to all of you and Ashish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep Bhaiya. Thank you, Shyam. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Ashish Agarwal. I am from batch 2000. I am a chartered accountant by profession. So today the topic for discussion is MSME. So MSME, we are hearing this word for last 2 months. In fact, since interim budget was announced on 1st of February 2024. Why this is a buzzword for last 2 months? The reason is very simple, that there was an amendment which came in Finance Act 2023, not in Finance Act 2024, in the interim budget. There was already an amendment which was done last year and which was having impact in this particular year for the month of February and March 2024. So that is the reason hue and cry was there for this MSME word since February 2024. Everyone was expecting some announcement by the Honorable Finance Minister on 1st of February with respect to deferment of the amendment which came in the Finance Act 2023. But that didn't happen. So there is a fallout of that particular amendment, and there is some impact on all the MSMEs. So what we will do, let me share the presentation just for reference, and we will discuss one-on-one what is the impact that the amendment came in Finance Act 2023 will have on all the MSMEs. So these are the topic which we will cover. What is MSME? What is the due date of payment for MSME? We have also captured few case studies. Then this is the background about MSME. Then the most important thing, amendment which came under the income tax law actually in Finance Act 2023, which is under section 43B of that. So what is the impact of that particular section for all the MSMEs, and what are the key considerations which we should keep in mind? So first of all, we should understand what is an MSME. We only know this terminology MSME. This particular terminology has actually been defined under a particular law, which is MSME Development Act 2006. So whenever we are talking about MSME, this is reference to this particular act only, because this particular word has not been defined under the Income Tax Act. This particular word has not been defined under the Companies Act. So we have to refer the definition under MSME Act only. So who all are MSME? In a layman's language, an individual who is running a proprietorship concern, an HUF, an association of person, a partnership firm, a limited liability enterprises, or limited liability partnership, or any company by whatever name called. So all the entities will be considered as an MSME subject to satisfaction of certain criteria. There are 2 particular criteria for all these enterprises to be considered as an MSME. So MSME, there are 3 terms under MSME. One is micro, second is small, and third is medium. So we will understand what is the definition of micro, small, and medium in the next slide. Before that, what is the relevance of MSME? What is the purpose of MSME? Government thought that in the growth of GDP or in the growth of economy, MSME will play a crucial role. And as of now, in fact, if there are many industries which is being operated by large players and small players and medium players, so around 96% of those industries fall within the purview of MSME only. And 4 to 5% of the industries are run by the larger players. And what is the contribution of MSME into the GDP overall? So around 40% of the GDP is contributed by MSME in India. And similarly, around 40% of the exports are being undertaken by MSME only in India. So these are the broad factors for MSME. Now, what is the benefit of an MSME? Why you want to get yourself registered under MSME? So there are only few benefits on a subjective side. On an objective side also, there is only one benefit which is there, which impacts your finance or financial flow. So on the subjective side, like if you are supplying your goods or services to any government sector undertaking, be it state government or central government, then you might get some leverage or you might get some relaxation in terms of EMD or in terms of eligibility criteria under the public procurement policy of the government. So it is relevant to only those players or those MSMEs who are actually supplying goods or rendering services to government undertakings. Number one, these are the subjective benefits. Number two, again, MSME may get concessional or priority loans from banking or financial institutions. So again, there are various financial institutions, there are various policies which has been framed wherein loan can be given at concessional rate of interest and without collaterals to MSME enterprises to enable them to run businesses smoothly and efficiently without any lack of finance. And the third and the most important benefit is that they need to get their payments within the due date or as per the time prescribed under the law. Otherwise, there are penal implications. So these are the three primary benefits which an MSME has. And if you are obtaining any of these benefits, then definitely you should get yourself registered under the MSME Act. Under MSME Act, there are no other tangible benefits per se, but tangible benefit is there under Income Tax Act, under the Startup India Action Plan. Because under Income Tax Act, there is one particular benefit which has been provided to a startup which also falls under the category of MSME because there is a criteria or a threshold of 100 crore turnover. So if you are having a turnover up to 100 crore, then you may be eligible to get an income tax incentive of around 3 years. But there are many approval requirements from the nodal body, which is Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. And there is an interministerial board also from where you need to get the approval to get yourself registered under the Startup India Action Plan and to avail the income tax incentive. The incentive is that you will get a 3-year tax holiday with respect to your income. That is, you need not have to pay tax under the normal provisions of the Act for a period of 3 consecutive years. If you satisfy the criteria of the Startup India Action Plan, the eligible entities for those particular plan is only company and LLP. No individual, no IQF, no partnership firm. It is only company and LLP who are eligible to avail those incentives subject to satisfaction of certain criteria. And the primary criteria is that you need to be engaged into innovation, development, improvement of product, process or services. You have developed, you have innovated something new, you have created something new, or you have built a scalable business model wherein there is a huge potential of employment generation, or you are creating wealth for the economy. So if you are satisfying these broad criteria in your business model, then you will be able to claim the income tax benefit under the Income Tax Act. Otherwise, there are no tangible benefits per se to MSME under the MSME Act apart from what we have discussed. So now let's move on. What is the definition of MSME? One is the micro, second is a small, third is medium. For micro, the investment in plant and machinery does not exceed 1 crore rupees and turnover does not exceed 5 crore rupees. For a small enterprise, investment in plant and machinery 1 crore to 10 crore and turnover 5 crore to 50 crore. And for medium enterprise, it is investment in plant and machinery from 10 crore to 50 crore and turnover 50 crore to 250 crore. So if you breach any of these criteria, so you will fall into the next criteria. And if you breach the criteria for medium enterprise, that is investment in plant and machinery exceeds 50 crore or turnover exceeds 250 crore, then you will become a large enterprise and you will not be falling within the purview of MSME definition as per the MSME Development Act 2006. So again, plant and machinery again has to be linked to the income tax return form. Means in income tax return, when we purchase a plant and machinery, let's say we have purchased a plant and machinery of 1 crore rupees and we have claimed a depreciation of 10% on that plant and machinery or 15%, then your written down value of that plant and machinery after a year is 85 lakh rupees. So for the purpose of this threshold which has been prescribed under MSME Act, you need to consider the value of 85 lakh rupees. Similarly, for turnover, they have said that turnover will not include export turnover. That means whatever export that you are undertaking, even if your export turnover exceeds all this prescribed threshold, you will still be falling within the definition of MSME and you will still be categorized as MSME. So this is the definition which has been provided under the MSME Act itself. So moving on, again, what is an MSME and which all enterprises are covered under the definition of MSME? So there is a definition of enterprise because MSME includes micro, small, medium enterprise. So again, enterprise has been defined to include all categories of individuals, and apart from that, enterprise should be engaged in the manufacturing or production of article or thing. Means it has to be engaged in a particular manufacturing setup or production of any article or thing. Along with that, enterprise also include service sector as well. Means if you are engaged in rendering of any services, then also you will be categorized and you will be eligible within the purview of MSME Act. However, the definition of enterprise and the eligibility which is there under the MSME Act does not cover within its purview full-fledged traders who are purchasing and selling goods, who are not involved into any sort of manufacturing or rendering of any kind of services. So they have specifically excluded traders within the purview of MSME Act definition. However, subsequently, in October 2022, when this discussion was going on with the regulator, many traders has represented that even though traders also fall within the criteria of investment in plant and machinery and turnover, but still they are not able to get the benefit of MSME with respect to financing facility. So what the regulator does, that it has included trader for the purpose of MSME only for limited purpose of allowing them credit facility from the banks and financial institutions, so that they can also avail the financing facility which they require to run their business on a concessional rate of interest and without collaterals, subject to banking guidelines. So that was the limited purpose for which the regulator has included trader, and regulator has also allowed trader to get themselves registered under the MSME Act. Otherwise, no other benefit under the MSME Act per se is being allowed to traders. and there is a particular NIC code, because there is a National Industrial Classification Code. There is a detailed list wherein all the sectors has been categorized under different categories. Therein trader has been specifically categorized under NIC code 45, 46, 47. So when we get ourselves registered as MSME under the MSME Act, under the on Uddam portal, there you will see that NIC code has to be specifically mentioned, and you will be able to see whether the other person is a trader or they are a manufacturing unit or they are service unit. So all those categorization is specifically done on the Uddam portal itself. So you will be able to clearly understand whether the person who has registered and themselves under the MSME, whether they are a trader or manufacturer or service provider. So moving ahead, under the MSME Act, right now we are not talking about the amendment. It will be having an impact. We are just talking about the basic foundation of MSME, what MSME is. And under the MSME Act itself, as I said earlier, that one of the main reasons for getting yourself registered under MSME is to get the payment from your vendor or immediately within the prescribed due date. And what is the due date that has been prescribed under the MSME Act? So Section 15 of the MSME Act prescribes the due date. Due date is very simple. We need to categorize into two particular aspects. One, let's say you are a MSME, you are registered under MSME Act, and you are supplying goods to a particular vendor or your particular customer, sorry. So if you are supplying goods to your customer, there must be a written agreement with the customer that these are the terms of sale, let's say. And if in the terms of sale, the due date for making the payment should also be clearly mentioned. Let's say under the agreement with our customer, we have mentioned that within 30 days, you need to clear my payment once I have completed my delivery of the goods to you, or once I have completed my service delivery to you. So if there is a written agreement with your customer as an MSME, then the other party, the buyer or the service recipient, they need to make the payment within that prescribed period of 30 days only, as per the MSME Act. So 30 days is the timeline for them to make the payment to you. And if there is no written agreement, it means you don't have any written agreement, you are doing business on an informal basis without any written correspondence, without any work order, without any PO, then under that particular situation, the Act says that 15 days from the appointed day will be the due date for making the payment by the buyer or the service recipient. So it is 15 days from when you have completed your delivery of goods or service delivery. So in that particular situation, the due date for making the payment by the buyer or the service recipient is 15 days. And if there is a written agreement, then as per the written agreement, subject to maximum terms of 45 days. Means if your written agreement says that the buyer or the service recipient can make the payment within 60 days, but as per MSME Act, since you are a MSME registered supplier, the other person is liable to make payment within 45 days, even though your agreement states 60 days commercially. So 45 days is the outer limit in case of written agreement, and in case of no written agreement, the maximum time limit for making the payment by the customer, by the buyer, by the service recipient is 15 days from the date of completion of delivery of goods or services. So this is the law which is there under the MSME Act. So this is again a simple graphical presentation of due date calculation, what we just discussed. If agreed period is less than 45 days in writing, then the agreed period which we discussed, let's say if 30 days is the agreed period, then 30 days. And if the agreed period is more than 45 days, which we discussed, if it is 60 days, then again it will be restricted to 45 days as per MSME. And in case there is no written agreement with respect to due date of payment, then it will be 15 days from the day of acceptance or deemed acceptance, means the day of completion of your delivery of goods or rendition of services. So this is the due date as per the MSME Act. What will happen under the MSME law? Still, we are not talking about the amendments. We are only talking about the basic concept of MSME. What MSME Act entails or what MSME Act requires. So what we discussed was that if the buyer is not making payment of your goods or services, you being a registered MSME, whether buyer is a registered MSME or not is not relevant for this particular act. The supplier of goods, the service provider, if he is registered under MSME, the buyer is required to make the payment within the due date. And if he is not doing it, then there is a liability of interest on the buyer as per the law. And what is the law? Law says that the buyer is liable to pay interest on delayed payment from the due date. Due date we have already discussed, 15 days in case of no agreement and 45 days maximum in case of written agreement. What is the rate of interest that has been notified? 3 times of the bank rate notified by RBI. So there is a prescribed interest rate which RBI regularly publishes on its website. So if the bank rate notified by RBI is, let's say, 7%, so the rate of interest charge will be 21%. Means the buyer will be liable to pay 21% interest for the period of delay. So if you have supplied goods worth 1 crore rupees and there is a delay of, let's say, 2 months, so for 2 months, the buyer will be liable to pay interest to you with respect to that 1 crore rupees at the rate of 21% per annum. And whatever interest that buyer will pay to you as per the MSME Act, that interest will not be allowed as deduction or deductible expenditure in his and as per the income tax law. And this law is there for ages now. So whatever interest that is being paid to MSMEs by the buyer or the service recipient, that is not allowed as expense in their income tax return. So moving ahead, again, there is a particular situation which has been mentioned under the MSME with respect to delivery of goods or rendering of services. Let's say you have delivered goods to your buyer on a particular date and there is some fault in those particular goods. The buyer says that there is a defect in the goods and you need to rectify the defect or you replace the goods. And there is a time limit prescribed under the MSME Act only, that if the buyer needs to intimate about the defect in that service delivery or goods procurement within 15 days from the date of supply. So buyer has a time limit of 15 days to intimate whether there is any defect or not. So if there is any defect, he will intimate you that there is a defect, then you need to rectify the defect. Then accordingly, when you rectify the defect, that defect date, rectification of defect date will be considered as a new date of supply for the purpose of due date of payment by the buyer. So this is illustrated by way of an example only in this particular slide. I'm not going into this because this is a commercial thing. But again, simple point which we need to keep in mind, that if there is any defect which is highlighted by the buyer, the day when we rectify that particular defect, that particular date will be considered as the date of acceptance or deemed date of acceptance. And from that particular date, the due date will start for the buyer for making the payment with respect to those goods. So again, there are few illustrations which has been captured in the slide. Like For example, where goods are supplied and accepted on 30th of March 2024. And there is a credit period which we have agreed as per the written agreement. So in first two example, in serial number 1 and 2 of the box, the credit period is 30 days and 60 days. Whereas in third particular scenario, there are no written agreement. It's a verbal agreement which we have incurred with the buyer. We are simply saying that you need to give me payment as soon as possible, or there is a verbal understanding that the other party will make the payment within 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 1 month, 2 months, whatsoever. So as per the MSME Act, what is the due date for payment under all these three scenarios? For 30th of March, it is 30 days only. So 28th of April. For 30th of March, wherein credit period is 60 days, the due date will be restricted to 45 days only. As I said, when there is a written agreement, the maximum due date can be only 45 days. So even though written agreement says 60 days credit period, but for the purpose of MSME law, it will be 45 days only. In the third scenario, wherein there are no written agreement, what would be the case? So as I said, when there are no written agreement, the due date will be 15 days from the date of acceptance, means date of delivery of goods or rendition of services. So in this particular date, 15 days from 30th of March, which is 13th of April 2024 only. So these are the different scenarios as per the MSME Act. So again, there is another case study similarly, wherein date of supply is 25th of March 2024. Actual date of payment is 28th March. So if written agreement exists, then payment has to be made by 9th May 2024. And if written agreement does not exist, then payment has to be made within 15 days of 25th of March. That is 9th of April 2024. Same example with different consequences. If actual date of payment is 30th of April, in case of written agreement, the date of payment done on 30th of April is within the due date, if there is a written agreement of 45 days. However, in the same scenario, if there is no written agreement, then the payment due date is 9th of April. There is actual payment you have done on 30th of April. That means you are liable to pay penal interest as per the MSME Act, and you have not complied with the due date as per the MSME law, because there are no written agreements and you have to make the payment within 15 days. That is 9th of April 2024. Again, third scenario wherein payment is done even after 45 days. Then in both the scenarios, you have done a non-compliance under MSME law. So this was the basic intention of MSME Act. So now, whenever we talk about MSME, whenever we say that what is an MSME, we should only refer to MSME Development Act 2006, wherein definition of enterprise is there, wherein criteria of MSME has been specified with respect to investment in plant and machinery, with respect to investment in turnover, with respect to turnover, and what are the due date for making the payment to MSME. That is also been clearly specified under MSME Act. And what is the implications if the payment is not done as per the due date? Then you have to pay interest 3 times the RBI notified rate of interest. So hope we are clear till now as to what is MSME, why MS registration is required under MSME, and what are the objective and subjective benefits of MSME. So we can pause here and we can take queries if anyone has any queries under the MSME law.
Yes, if anyone has anything, we can just unmute and ask.
If there are no queries, I hope everyone has understood everything, or everyone has not understood anything.
Agreed. Siddharth Nevatia bhaiya said all clear. अच्छा, Ashish, we have one question. Agreement वाला चीज जो अभी we are discussing, agreement date. So agreement date would be मतलब कोई formal agreement if we have to do anything, or suppose if I issue a bill and I write payment to be done within 30 days or otherwise interest will be charged. So that will be deemed to be an agreement. What
Simple.
will be the kind of scenario?
There are 4-5 days in which a business can be transacted. Number one, we have a process of issuing a work order or purchase order or supply order, right? That is number one document. Let's assume we have that document, then we will mention the credit terms under that particular document, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. And second scenario is we don't have that document. Then the second document which can be is the email correspondence with respect to that particular payment. We can mention at the time of supply of goods in our email correspondence also, which is in writing, that we are supplying goods to you subject to credit term or credit period of 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. Because it has to be documented. Third thing is we have not done any email correspondence. Then we have issued an invoice from the date of supply.
Right.
In the invoice, we should categorically mention that the credit term was agreed to be this particular date of 30 days. Means it should not be left open. It has to be categorically specified in the invoice that it is 30 days, 45 days, 15 days, 60 days, 3 months, whatever it is. Let's say we don't have all these 3 scenarios. Then the due date as per MSME is 15 days.
15 days.
Only from the date of supply.
No, but Ashish bhaiya, I have one question. It is as far as I know, it is regarding from the date of supply of goods and service. So if in let's say in invoice or in agreement, if
I am talking about date of supply only.
Date of supply only, not from the date of invoice.
Yeah, absolutely. Date of supply only. The basic premise is date of supply or completion of rendition of services.
So the tenet of the whole law is the whichever is earlier, like as you said, the if date of supply or the invoice date.
No.
But that is what clarification is required.
It is date of supply or rendition of services.
Date of supply always.
Yeah, always.
Rishabh has a question. Rishabh, Prashant bhaiya, please continue. Prashant bhaiya, continue.
Yeah, and my another point is the payment, will it include inclusive of GST or it will be exclusive of GST?
Again, I will raise a question. What is the treatment in your books of account first of all? Let's say you are a buyer or a service recipient, okay, and you have availed services or you have purchased goods from an MSME registered vendor, right? The MSME registered vendor has raised an invoice of 1 lakh plus GST, 1 lakh plus 18,000, 1 lakh 18,000 on you. So what will you do in your books of account? How you will record it in your books of account?
1 lakh 18,000.
1 lakh definitely. Yes, Sam, you can continue.
Inclusive of GST, the outstanding amount will be inclusive.
Also, no? Yes. From MSME law, it talks about the amount which is pending to be paid. But from an income tax law, again, there will be a different interpretation which we will discuss now.
Okay. Prashant bhaiya, clear?
Yeah, clear.
One question over here.
Hello?
In case of any dispute between from the end of recipient, when he is not happy with the service or the good is not as per the contract, in that case, what will happen? The service is not up to the mark. The recipient is raised some objection over that. So how will the 45 days or 15 days, whatever is, will be applicable? So
as I said, under MSME Act, the time limit of 15 days has been prescribed for raising any kind of objections by the buyer or the service recipient.
Okay.
From the date of supply or from the date of rendition of services.
Okay.
So if you raise that objection, so the ultimate seller or the... Sorry, Prashant, you said something?
No, you continue. I will ask after this, okay?
Yeah. So service provider or the supplier of goods, which is a MSME registered vendor, he needs to rectify that defect. And once that defect is rectified, then that particular date will be the date of conclusion of supply of goods or rendition of services for computing the time limit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just if you can clarify, there in some cases there is also a retention clause. So what will happen in that, Ashish? Yeah, for the benefit of all, if you can just clarify.
Sorry, I didn't hear you
Means
properly.
in some case of supply agreement, there are retention clauses also. Okay. So for that some part of the money would be withheld as retention money. In that case, what would be the main criteria? Because I believe retention money is recognized in books, but not paid as tax or something. So if you can just clarify on that point, if because I don't have anything in that.
Again, this is a specific scenario wherein there is a commercial understanding that a particular amount of income will be retained subject to conclusion of other parameters. Means once you complete, there are 10 parameters which needs to be completed, and you have completed only 5 parameters. But as per the accounting norms, you might have recognized the income. Maybe you are falling for a real estate business, you are falling OCM, and for other category of business, percentage of completion method you are following. But ultimately, the conclusion of supply of goods commercially, whether that is done or not, that you need to justify first. If it is done or if it is completed, then definitely MSME Act will doesn't discusses about that particular scenario. It says that once the supply is completed from the MSME vendor or MSME supplier, then it is eligible or it is entitled to get the payment within the prescribed due date. Otherwise, the situation is ambiguity. There is ambiguity in this particular scenario wherein both the parties will question each other with respect to due date of payment. And the worst scenario, what will happen? The other party is not going to pay the interest under MSME law. If the other party is not going to pay the interest under MSME law, then you can only have legal recourse to that, because you can only fight it in a court of law that you are entitled to get the interest as per the law, but the other party is not paying it. Then you need to commercially justify that whatever money that was retained, that was at that particular point of time, the supply of goods was completed or not completed. That is the limited point, depending on the terms.
Okay. I think it is clear. Next,
Ashish,
we have, yeah, Amit Bhaiya.
Ashish, on interest side, I wanted to check. Suppose if the payment term agreed is 60 days commercially, so is it still mandatory to pay and charge an interest of this whatever 3 times after 45 days? Or these can be commercially agreed between buyer and seller?
See, as per the MSME law, the outer limit in case of written agreement is 45 days. If you are not paying after 45 days, within 45 days, then there is a liability of interest as per the MSME law. You are liable to pay interest.
Okay, but
as a buyer or a service recipient.
Okay, but commercially, if agreement is 60 days, still as per law, you have to.
Commercially, you can enter into 90 days,
Yeah,
even 20 days, depending on your business scenarios.
right. But as per law, it is 45 days.
But if you are dealing with an MSME registered vendor who is supplying goods or rendering services, giving services to you, then definitely as per law, this is the obligation on you.
This is a requirement. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. If I may.
Yeah, Amit Bhaiya, boliye.
Just in case we have raised a complaint against, we have raised a inferior quality product or service provided by the seller, and the seller does not address the situation in any ways, then we don't fall. Then we can withhold the payment as long as the service complaint is not service or product complaint is not fully answered. Is that can also be the case?
Yeah, that can be the case, because the word which they've used is the acceptance, day of acceptance, right? Or day of deemed acceptance. Acceptance means the buyer or the recipient is satisfied with the delivery of goods or services. If there is any dispute with respect to that, then the payment, the due date of payment will not at all get triggered only.
Perfect. Got it.
Great. Sunil Bhaiya, Sunil Agarwal ji. You can unmute.
Hello.
हाँ भैया
Hello.
बोलिए. हाँ भैया बोलिए.
हाँ नमस्ते जी। मैं
नमस्ते।
बोल रहा हूँ कि ये जो ट्रेडर का रजिस्ट्रेशन होता है, कुछ लोग जैसे कि ब्रोकरेज का काम भी करते हैं और ट्रेडिंग का काम भी करते हैं साथ में सेम फर्म में, तो उनको भी एमएसएमई रजिस्ट्रेशन मिल जाता है बिकॉज सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है तो एमएसएमई रजिस्ट्रेशन मिल गया। तो इस केस में कौन सा मैंने डेफिनेशन आएगा? उनको ट्रेडर में रजिस्ट्रेशन मिलेगा कि सर्विस प्रोवाइडर मिलेगा, किस में मिलेगा?
ट्रेडर में मिलेगा।
तो ब्रोकरेज का काम भी कर रहे हैं
अगर
साथ में तो
आपके दो कैटेगरी ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन भी मिल सकते हैं आपको। यू आर बोथ मैन्युफैक्चरर एंड ट्रेडर। इफ यू आर बोथ ट्रेडर एंड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर, so you can get yourself registered under both the categories in
वो
the
तो आप
same
एडिट
process.
कर सकते हो, अगर कोई एक मिला हुआ, जस्ट इंटरप्टिंग को एडिट तो आप जाके कर ही सकते हैं एमएसएमई सर्टिफिकेट अपना कभी।
Yes,
नहीं,
amendment
वो
हो
तो कर
सकता है।
सकते, वो कर सकते हैं। जैसे जब अपने उससे उससे माल परचेज करेंगे, वो ट्रेडिंग कर रहा है, तो फिर उसमें उसका एमएसएमई कैसे अप्लाई होगा इसके ऊपर में?
कि ट्रेडिंग
आर यू
कर
गेटिंग
रहा
माई
है।
पॉइंट? जैसे आपने ट्रेड उससे माल परचेज किया एज ए ट्रेडर, मैंने वो
No,
किसी
I'm
से
not
ट्रेड,
clear on the query raised.
you suppose he is purchasing from manufacturing unit A, और बी ट्रेडर है, सी को सेल कर रहा है, ठीक है। और तो उसमें उसमें उसका ट्रेडिंग का होगा कि मैं कैसे, क्या होगा उसमें, एप्लीकेबिलिटी क्या आएगी?
मतलब देखिए, आप ऐसे सोचिए कि आप
जी
ट्रेडर हो, ठीक है।
ठीक है।
यू आर अ ट्रेडर, यू आर बाइंग फ्रॉम मिस्टर ए एंड यू आर सेलिंग टू मिस्टर बी,
ठीक है।
and you are the trader. You
ओके
want to get yourself registered first under MSME.
ठीक है।
ठीक है। अगर आप अपने आप को रजिस्टर्ड करना चाहते हो एमएसएमई ने, आप रजिस्टर्ड कर लिए, बट आपको एज एन एमएसएमई जो पेमेंट का ड्यू डेट का है वो एडवांटेज आपको नहीं मिलेगा
ओके ओके
एज अ ट्रेडर।
ओके। तो मतलब
ट्रेडर
एक
को
एंटिटी का दो
रजिस्ट्रेशन
रजिस्ट्रेशन
केवल
भी हो
आईटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग के लिए दिया गया है, फॉर अवेलिंग द फाइनेंसिंग फैसिलिटीज फ्रॉम द बैंक्स एंड फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस।
ओके ओके। मतलब एक आदमी का दो रजिस्ट्रेशन भी हो सकता है, मतलब एक सर्विस प्रोवाइडर और ट्रेडर दोनों में हो सकता है?
दोनों
हेलो।
कैटेगरी में आप रजिस्टर्ड करवा सकते हो। देन दैट
ओके
पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन आप एक्चुअल में एमएसएमई में माने जाओगे, रजिस्टर्ड एंटिटी, फॉर
ओके
ऑल
ओके
पर्पसेस ऑफ लॉ।
ओके। थैंक्स थैंक्स।
थैंक यू। ऋषभ, तुमने एक क्वेश्चन पोस्ट किया। ऋषभ, यू वांट टू आस्क इट? ऋषभ, देयर? पीयूष चौधरी।
हाँ हेलो भैया।
हाय पीयूष, आप पूछ सकते हैं अपना क्वेश्चन।
भैया मैं पूछ रहा हूँ, जैसे हम सेक्टर में हैं और हम लोग गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर से काम करते हैं। मेरा दो क्वेश्चन है। एक तो हम लोग जो गाड़ी लेते हैं, हम लोग मार्केट से गाड़ी बोरो करते हैं, तो हम लोग अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड प्लेस से बोरो करते हैं, जैसे कि ट्रक ओनर्स हो गए, ट्रक ड्राइवर्स से हायर करते हैं। तो उनको पेमेंट भी हम लोग थोड़ा सा 30 डेज बाद, 45 डेज, 60 डेज ऑफ पेमेंट हम लोग करते हैं। तो उस केस में हम लोग उनको कैसे क्योंकि वो लोग अनरजिस्टर्ड है, वो लोग तो बहुत ही अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर्स है, तो उनको कैसे हम लोग रजिस्टर करेंगे या कैसे पेमेंट उसका होगा भैया?
देखिए, मेरे को जो समझ में आया, जो क्वेरी विच यू हैव जस्ट रेज्ड, कि आप के जो वेंडर्स है या कस्टमर्स है वो अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में है। वॉइस क्रैक हो रहा है इन बिटवीन, आई एम नॉट एबल टू क्लियरली अंडरस्टैंड।
I have unmuted him.
हेलो।
हाँ, continue आशीष भाई, continue।
या नो, आई एम नॉट क्लियर ऑन द क्वेरी अगेन, मतलब।
पीयूष भैया, एक बार वापस ठीक से बोलो ना, कुछ
या
एरर हो
हाँ,
गया।
मेरा दो क्वेश्चन है, तो मैं पहले एक बार क्लियर करता हूँ। मैं दो क्वेश्चन, हम लोग ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर में काम करते हैं और हम लोग रेलवे एंड डिफेंस में ज्यादातर काम करते हैं। तो रेलवे एंड डिफेंस जो है वो लोग क्या इस चीज को फॉलो ही नहीं करते हैं। हम लोग को भले ही एग्रीमेंट में हमारा 45 डेज या 60 डेज लिखा हुआ हो, स्टिल वो लोग पेमेंट हम लोग को 120 डेज के बाद में, नॉर्मली नॉर्म्स उनका 120 डेज के बाद भी हम लोग को पेमेंट मिलता है। ये चीज मैं पहले भी उन लोग को लेटर लिख के भेजा हुआ हूँ कि अभी एमएसएमई एक्ट में आप हमको टाइम लाइन से पेमेंट करिए, बट उन लोग को इस चीज के बारे में मालूम भी नहीं है या वो लोग करते भी नहीं है। तो इस चीज में हम लोग कैसे उनके साथ डील करें, हमारे क्लाइंट के साथ में, रेलवे एंड डिफेंस के साथ में?
अगेन लीगल डिस्प्यूट हो गया एक साथ, अदर पार्टी इज नॉट मेकिंग द पेमेंट विद इन ड्यू डेट, देन यू हैव टू
नहीं,
फाइट इट
ये
आउट।
लीगल डिस्प्यूट नहीं है, ये उनका नॉर्म्स ही है कि वो हमको पेमेंट करते हैं 3 मंथ्स के बाद में। तो पर वो लोग क्या, वो उन लोग को इस चीज के बारे में आइडिया भी नहीं है, तो इस चीज में कैसे उनको मैं बोलूँ कि आप, क्योंकि वो लोग बोलते हैं हम गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर, अब गवर्नमेंट का ही चीज बता रहे हैं, वो बोलते हैं हम लोग, हमको ये फर्क पड़ता नहीं है, तो हम लोग को पेमेंट मिलता ही है 120 डेज के बाद में।
देखिए गवर्नमेंट में भी देयर आर मेनी PSUs, there are many different undertakings. For them also, there is this particular penal interest which they need to charge, which they need to pay, and there is a disallowance also under the Income Tax Act, which is applicable to them. जितने भी PSUs या पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग्स या कंपनीज है, कोल इंडिया लिमिटेड बोल लो आप, वेस्ट बंगाल पावर डेवलपमेंट बोल लो, तो सबके ऊपर ये एप्लीकेबल होता है अल्टीमेटली। तो अब सामने वाला अगर नहीं कर रहा है तो वो तो आपको कमर्शियली एंड लीगली फाइट करना होगा। मतलब लॉ जो बोलता है वो आपके पास है सामने में, यू कैन रेफर टू दैट एंड यू कैन डिस्कस विद देम। इसमें तो आप कमर्शियली और लीगली उन लोग नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो दैट यू नीड टू सॉर्ट इट आउट लीगली।
क्योंकि ये मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रेलवे के अंडर में आता है, रेलवे का बहुत सारे डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं, वो लोग इस चीज को 90% वहाँ पे लोगों को मालूम नहीं इस चीज के बारे में। मतलब हम लोग लेटर दे दे के थक गए, हमारे साथ में और भी वेंडर्स लोग हैं, वो लोग भी परेशान हो गए कि सर आप लोग इस चीज को फॉलो करें, बट दे डोंट एग्री ऑल दिस थिंग्स। तो ये हम लोग, तो मैं बोला कि इसमें कैसे हम लोग इस चीज को प्रॉब्लम, क्योंकि सभी लोग को पेमेंट मिल जाएगा 45 डेज में, बट हम लोग अभी भी वही 120 डेज वाले में पेमेंट मिल रहा है हम लोग को। एंड सेकंड क्वेश्चन इज दैट हम लोग जैसे गाड़ी लेते हैं, मार्केट से बोरो करते हैं, तो हमारे जो सप्लायर है दे आर ऑल अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड ट्रक ओनर्स या ट्रक वाले ड्राइवर लोग हैं। तो जैसे हम लोग उनका भी पेमेंट क्या है कि उनका भी हम लोग 90% पेमेंट हम लोग पहले ही कर देते हैं, बाकी का 10% पेमेंट बाद में करते हैं, बट वो भी पेमेंट की हम लोग को पेमेंट लेट से आता है, तो हम लोग भी उनको पेमेंट थोड़ा लेट से करते हैं। तो क्या हम लोग को उनको भी क्या वो 15 डेज के अंदर में पेमेंट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि हमारा उनके साथ कोई एग्रीमेंट होता नहीं है गाड़ी वालों के साथ में, जस्ट ऑन वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन वगैरह हो गया, एक पेपर वो एक हम साइन कर देते हैं
बट
बस।
जो सामने गाड़ी वाले हैं, whether they are registered under MSME,
नो नो नो
whether
नो,
all
दे
those
आर ऑल अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड। वो लोग छोटे छोटे गाड़ी वाले लोग हैं, ट्रक ओनर्स है, जो ब्रोकर्स है, वो लोग हैं, वो लोग कोई रजिस्टर्ड कराते नहीं है सब चीज में।
तो अगर रजिस्टर्ड नहीं अंडर MSME, देन देयर इज अ इंटरप्रिटेशन कि पहला बात है सेक्शन 8, सेक्शन 2, सेक्शन 7, अगर ये आप रीड करोगे MSME एक्ट में, you have to get yourself registered under MSME to avail the benefits of MSME law or MSME Act, Development Act 2006. The other vendors and the parties with whom you are dealing with, if they are not registered under MSME Development Act 2006 under Udyam portal, then आपको पेमेंट करने का टाइम लिमिट है ही नहीं आपके पास as per MSME law. Then you are not required to follow it.
हेलो।
क्या?
हाँ भैया, ऋषभ यार। मेरा एक क्वेरी था दैट वी रिसीव गुड्स फ्रॉम अहमदाबाद, ऑलराइट? So they generate the bill on supposedly on 16th of February, but we received the goods here in Kolkata on 27th. So 45 days का जो क्राइटेरिया है ड्यू डेट पेमेंट का, वो कौन सा डेट से कैलकुलेट होगा, 27th से या 16 से?
उसमें अल्टीमेटली मेरे पास जब तक गुड्स पहुंचेगा नहीं लीगली,
राइट
तब तक मेरे को
राइट।
पता कैसे चलेगा कि, नहीं तो अगर महीना भर ही ट्रांसपोर्ट में लग गया, देन हाउ
हाँ,
वी विल फिगर आउट कि डिफेक्ट पीरियड डिफेक्ट था कि नहीं था, एंड हाउ वी विल गेट इट रेक्टिफाइड।
गेट इट,
तो
समझ
तो
गया।
तो अल्टीमेटली हमें वैसे ही कॉल करना है। मतलब जब तक मेरे पास आएगा नहीं प्रोडक्ट, मैं कैसे बता पाऊंगा कि सही है नहीं है।
ओके, थैंक यू भैया, समझ गया।
भैया इसमें जो लास्ट वाला जो था इनवॉइस डेट एंड डिलीवरी डेट, इसमें FOR और एक्स का डिफरेंस रह जाता है। अगर कोई एक्स ले रहा है तो उस पे इनवॉइस डेट आ जाएगा, क्योंकि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन उसका कैप उसमें चला गया
वो तो
स्कोप में।
ऑब्वियसली अगर मैं
हाँ
मैं अगर वहां से
हाँ
डिलीवरी खुद ले रहा हूँ, मेरा ऑब्लिगेशन है, फिर तो चेंज हो ही जाएगा ना सिचुएशन,
हाँ,
क्योंकि फिर मेरा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हो
यस।
जाएगा ना। मैं फिर रास्ते का इंश्योरेंस
डेट ऑफ
भी मैं
डिलीवरी
लेता
फिर
हूँ।
मैटर नहीं करता, डेट ऑफ डिलीवरी डेट ऑफ सप्लाई हो गया।
वो लॉरी का कुछ हो भी जाता है तो दैट इज माय
यस।
रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। आई एग्री। देन यू
चले
विल नॉट बी एबल टू जस्टिफाई दैट सिनेरियो नो कि मेरे पास अभी तक गुड्स मेरे कंट्रोल में नहीं आया अल्टीमेटली।
चले भैया, अब अपने मूव ऑन करते हैं। मोर क्वेश्चंस विल टेक एट द लास्ट नाउ।
या लेट्स मूव ऑन। So till now we have discussed about what? is an MSME under the MSME Act, Development Act. Now, the hue and cry which we are having for last 2.5 months, and the discussion around MSME, everything is centered around this particular section actually. This is section 43B of the Income Tax Act. What is section 43B of the Income Tax Act? First of all, section 43 is applicable to all SSEs who are engaged in doing any business or profession. If you are engaged in any business or profession and you are liable to pay income tax, you are preparing your books of account, then section 43B is applicable to you. However, section 43, there is a carve out with respect to few special provisions under the income tax law, which talks about taxation on presumptive basis, wherein if you are engaged in any business as a taxpayer, and if your turnover does not exceed 3 crore rupees, then you can pay a certain percentage of that particular turnover. You can declare certain percentage, which is 6% or 8%, depending on the cash transactions which you are having. You can declare that particular percentage as your total income for the purpose of Income Tax Act. And you need not have to compute your business income as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act. Simple, agar 2 crore rupiya hai your turnover and you are falling under 44AD, 6% or 8%, let's say your entire transaction is electronically, you have done all the payment income through electronic means, then 6% of 2 crore, 12 lakh will be your total taxable income as per the income tax law. And you need not have to do any adjustment which is required under other provisions of the Act with respect to those business or profession. Similarly, if you are engaged in any professional services, profession of chartered accountancy, company secretary, lawyers, medical practitioners, interior decorators, technical consultants, then they can avail the presumptive basis of taxation under section 44 ADA, for which there is a upper threshold of 75 lakh rupees. If your total income in a year does not exceed 75 lakh rupees, then you can go for presumptive basis of taxation without maintaining your books of account, and you can declare 50% of 75 lakh rupees as your total taxable income without doing any other adjustments. Similarly, 44 AE is for transporters who are not owning more than 10 goods carriages, and wherein they will be liable to pay taxes on the presumptive basis depending on the tonnage of their vehicle. So for all these three categories, section 43B is not applicable. One for business, turnover up to 3 crore rupees, 44 AD, profession, turnover up to 75 lakh rupees, 44 AE for transporters who are engaged into plying, hiring of goods or carriages, and who are not owning more than 10 goods carriages. If you are owning more than 10 goods carriages, then 44 AE is not applicable. Then you have to prepare your normal books of account. So apart from these three, section 43B is applicable for all taxpayers who are engaged in business or profession. So what is 43B? When we are preparing our books of account, we generally followed mercantile system of accounting. That means we book our expenses on accrual basis. That is, if we have availed those services or we have purchased those goods in a particular year, the expense has actually accrued and you need to show it in your profit and loss account as an expenditure in that particular year, even though the payment for that particular amount is pending. Generally, 43B earlier used to deal only with the statutory payments with respect to taxes like GST, duty, cess, because income tax anyways is not allowable expenditure under the Income Tax Act. Apart from that, all the employee-related payments, their retirement benefits like gratuity, pension, provident fund, all those are covered under section 43B. Similarly, any interest which we are liable to pay to any financial institutions, scheduled commercial banks or cooperative society banks or any designated NBFCs. So all those interests will also be subject to section 43B. So what 43B says, that you will be able to claim deduction for all those expenditures, employee related, retirement benefits, any statutory payments with respect to taxes, duty or cess, or any interest payment on loan availed from commercial scheduled banks, financial institutions, or cooperative societies and NBFCs. All those payments will only be allowed once you have done the payment. So let's say from 1st of April 2023 to 31st of March 2024, you have done accrual of around 5 lakh rupees in your books of account. That you are liable to pay interest, you are liable to pay retirement benefits to employees, you are liable to pay some taxes, duty or cess, which are statutory in nature. So all these payments you have debited in your P&L account, but you have actually not done the payment. You have recorded it as expense, but you have not done the payment. So what 43B says that you will be allowed payment deduction for all these expenditure once you have done the actual payment till the due date of filing the return of income. So generally, in case of business and profession wherein tax audit is applicable, the due date of filing the return of income is October following the end of the financial year. So for financial year 23-24, the due date for filing the return of income is 31st of October 2024. So even though you have debited all these expenditure in your books of account on before 31st of March, and you will be able to claim this expenditure as deductible expenditure under Income Tax Act if you make the payment of this expenditure before the due date of filing the return of income. So this was the basic law which was there prior to insertion of clause relating to MSME. So what Finance Act 2023 has done? Finance Act 2023 said that if you have any payment which has accrued and which we are liable to pay to any MSME which is registered under MSME Act, then that payment will be allowed as deduction to you only when you have done the payment as per the timeline prescribed under the MSME Act. So we have already discussed the timeline which is prescribed under the MSME Act, which is 45 days or 15 days, depending on the different scenarios. So within those timeline only, if you have done the payment, you will be able to claim the deduction of expenditure which you have done to MSME during this particular financial year 23-24. In case you are not doing the payment as per the statutory timeline, which is prescribed under the MSME Act, and you are reaching that timeline, then also you will be able to claim the deduction of that particular expenditure in the year in which you are actually making the payment. So this is the law which has been inserted by Finance Act 2023 and which is applicable for financial year 2023-24. So what is the impact of this particular provision now? So let us understand the impact of this particular provision by way of few examples. So date of GRN is mainly relevant for us. It is 15th. In the first example, we have done the supply of goods or delivery of services on 15th of February 2024. The credit period is 30 days as per the written terms. So the due date as per the agreement is 16th of March 2024. Due date as per MSME is also same. So I have kept both due date as per the agreement and as per MSME same. It will only vary in case of 45 days scenario, wherein due date as per agreement is more than 45 days, but as per MSME, it will be restricted to 45 days only. So in first example, in the first row, if you see the payment date is 16th March, you have done the payment within the due date, then you will be allowed deduction with respect to that expenditure in the current financial year 23-24 only. In the second scenario, second row, Same example, but the payment has been done after the due date as per MSME, which is 25th of March 2024. However, you will be able to claim the deduction in this financial year itself. Because as I said, that even if you do the payment beyond the due date prescribed under MSME, then also you will be able to claim the deduction of that particular expenditure in the financial year in which you have done the payment. So even though the due date as per MSME is falling on 16th March, and the payment date is also falling on the same financial year, which is 23-24. So you will be able to claim the deduction in financial year 23-24 itself. In the third row, if you see, in the same scenario, 16th March is the due date. However, you are doing the payment on 2nd of April 2024. That means you have breached the timeline of 16th March and you have not done the payment in the same financial year. So you will not be able to claim the deduction for this particular payment in your return of income in financial year 23-24. However, you will be able to claim the same as deduction in financial year 24-25, which is the next financial year. So it will increase your tax liability in this current financial year 23-24 because you have not done the payment within the due date as per MSME Act. Subsequently, next financial year 24-25, when you have actually done the payment, you will be able to additionally claim this particular amount as deduction again. So your tax liability will increase in this year and will reduce in the subsequent year to that extent with respect to the same amount. In the fourth row, in the fourth example, again, the date of GRN is 15th of March. So the due date is 14th of April as per the MSME Act. So if you have done the payment within 14th of April, then also you will be able to claim the deduction in the current financial year 23-24 only. Means the financial year in which the supply of goods or the rendition of services was completed, because you have complied with the due date as per the MSME Act. In the last row, if you see with the same example, the due date being 14th of April 2024, but you have done the payment actually on 20th of April 2024, then you will be able to claim the deduction only in financial year 24-25. And you will not be able to claim the deduction in 23-24. So there will be an increase in tax liability in 23-24. These are the few key considerations for the applicability of this amendment. One is the GST component. So if we are claiming certain expenditure wherein, let's say 1 lakh rupees bill amount is there, 18,000 is the GST. In the profit and loss account, we will debit only 1 lakh rupees because 18,000 is the input which we will claim with respect to that component. Then from income tax perspective, that 1 lakh rupees will only be subject to disallowance. And it will only be allowed on payment basis as per the due date under the MSME Act. What will be the treatment of outstanding balance as on 31st March 2023? As I said, this law is being made applicable from 1st of April 2023. Whatever outstanding balance that exists as on 31st March 2023, which are payable to the MSME vendors, you must have already claimed that as expenditure in your return of income which you have filed for 22-23. So this particular amendment, which is applicable from 1st of April 2023, 1st April 2023, will not be applicable to all the outstanding balances which are there in your books of account as on 31st of March 2023. Again, there might be a situation wherein there will be some capital payments also, which you can do and which you can debit in your books of account. However, those capital payments will not be routed to the profit and loss account. That means they are capital in nature and they are not revenue in nature. Means there might be purchase of furniture and fixtures or plant and machinery, which we generally capitalize in our books of account and on which we claim depreciation as per the prescribed rate. So there are few judicial pronouncements dealing with section 43B, which says that since all these expenditures are capital in nature, disallowance under section 43B will not get triggered with respect to those capital items. However, this is just a judicial interpretation and the matter has not yet settled. So there is every likelihood or possibility of litigation with respect to all those capital items purchased also. So we need to be conservative in our stand, and we should try and make the payment of all those items as well while claiming depreciation on all the items capitalized during the year. Then again, there might be a scenario wherein partial payment has been made to MSME. So if we does the partial payment as per the due date, and whatever payment that we have done will be allowed as deduction, and whatever payment that remains will be subject to disallowance as per section 43B. Interest payable to MSME, as we discussed earlier, that whatever penal interest that is liable as per the MSME Act, that is not an allowable expenditure under the Income Tax Act itself. So you will not be able to claim it as deduction while computing your taxable income under the Income Tax Act. In Uddam certificate, we can definitely download and verify the certificate on Uddam registration portal from all our vendors to whomsoever we have the liability to make the payment. So as a matter of practice, we should obtain the Uddam registration number of all the suppliers, and we should download their certificate, and we should see what is the categorization of those vendors and accordingly take a call. One thing we skipped earlier was that there are three terminology which is used: micro, small, and medium. So this particular amendment is only applicable to micro and small enterprises. It is not applicable to medium enterprises as well, because the section 43B which has been introduced, it restricts the disallowance only with respect to payment made to micro and small enterprises. So moving ahead, disclosure in income tax return, we have to make disclosure in the income tax return as well with respect to all the sum payable to micro or a small enterprise beyond the time limit is specified under 15 of the MSME Act. So what is the suggested action points for all the taxpayers? So we need to take the details of all the MSME vendors, whether they are categorized as a trader, whether they are categorized as a micro enterprises or small enterprises or medium enterprises. Then we should find out, we should segregate them into micro and small, because Income Tax Act section 43B is applicable to micro and small enterprise only. Then we need to see their aging analysis also of what all outstanding balances are there, which is payable to MSMEs as on 31st of March of a year, because for all the payments which are due as on 31st of March, there might be still timeline to make the payment, because there is outer time limit of 45 days in case of written agreement. So you can make the payment of all those vendors within 45 days and claim the same as deduction in your last financial year 23-24 itself. And it is better that you document your written agreement with respect to credit terms, so that you can avail the maximum time limit of 45 days with respect to making the payment. Because if there are no written agreement, then the payment terms will get curtailed to 15 days only as per the MSME Act, and accordingly will suffer disallowance under the Income Tax Act as well. So we stop here and we take queries on this now with respect to the disallowance which will get triggered as per section 43B of the Act under MSME.
Yeah. So if anyone has any query, they can just unmute.
Yes, Ashish.
Prakash bhaiya.
हाँ. Actually, tell me one thing. जैसे like मेरी एक पार्टी ने ना like 2023 मार्च का इनवॉइस रोक लिया और अभी फरवरी का इनवॉइस क्लियर कर दिया 24 का. तो एज इट फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट कुछ कर सकते हैं ऐसा, या फिर क्या एप्लीकेबिलिटी है इन चीजों के बारे में भी कुछ है एमएसएमई में क्लैरिटी?
नहीं, आप अभी इसमें सिंपल है. पहले आपका बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट में व्हाट इज द मेथड ऑफ अकाउंटिंग दैट यू आर फॉलोइंग?
मैं तो अक्रूवल बेसिस पे, मैं क्रेडिटर्स की बात कर रहा हूँ.
हाँ, तो
मेरे क्रेडिटर्स ने एक साल पहले का बैलेंस रोक के इस साल के सारे बिल्स क्लियर कर दिए कि सर अभी एडजस्टमेंट वैसे ही हो रहा है. तो ये अलाउड है, ऐसा कुछ कर सकते हैं वो?
नहीं, वो तो मतलब अलाउड है, मतलब ये है कि आपका अगर लास्ट ईयर का बिल पेंडिंग है तो लास्ट ईयर के लिए तो लॉ ट्रिगर करेगा नहीं, एज आई क्लैरिफाइड 31 मार्च 2023 तक का। तो और आपका पेमेंट जो मैपिंग हो रहा है वन ऑन वन, if those are mapping map to this particular current financial year, then definitely you need to also agree on that, both the parties, that this payment is in respect of this particular invoice. It has to be invoice wise. In terms of FIFO और LIFO method of accounting, एक्ट में कभी नहीं कोई कुछ नहीं बोलता कि पहला पेमेंट जो आएगा वो इससे एडजस्ट होगा, दूसरा पेमेंट जो आएगा इससे एडजस्ट होगा।
हाँ भाई, ये उन्होंने एक लूपहोल निकाल लिया कि सर वो कुछ पुराने इनवॉइसेस हैं, उन्होंने पूरा पेमेंट किया नहीं है। सपोजिटली साल भर में 50 लाख का माल गया और पिछले साल का 10 लाख का ड्यू था, उन्होंने मुझे 52 लाख का पेमेंट कर दिया, बोले सर आप नया बिल का एडजस्टमेंट कर लो, पुराना बैक बाकी रह जाएगा। तो ये लीगली कर सकते हैं क्या? मतलब वो मैं समझना चाहता हूँ, एज पर एमएसएमई कर सकते हैं क्या ऐसा?
पुराने वाले में तो आप इंटरेस्ट चार्ज कर सकते हो एमएसएमई एक्ट के हिसाब से, साल भर का आप इंटरेस्ट चार्ज करो 21%, मतलब अप्रॉक्स जो भी आरबीआई का रेट 10 to 3।
हाँ
ओके, नहीं वो तो नॉर्मली लागू होता भी नहीं है और दिया भी नहीं जाता है। मैं कह रहा हूँ कि एज पर आवर क्रेडिटर्स इज दिस गुड इनफ, वो कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं है कि वो गलत कर रहे हैं ऐसा कुछ, एंड उस पर
आपको
लाइबिलिटी
उन्होंने
खड़ी हो
पेमेंट
जाती है वहां
एडवाइस
से।
दिया है क्या?
उन्होंने वो पार्ट पेमेंट ही करते हैं एक एज अ नॉर्म, एंड 2 साल में 3 साल में फिर हिसाब हो जाता है वैसा है।
पार्ट पेमेंट भी करते हैं तो वो पेमेंट हैज टू बी मैप टू अ पर्टिकुलर इनवॉइस, इट कैन नॉट बी ट्रीटेड एज एडवांस। अगर आप एडवांस ट्रीट करके आप अपने बुक्स में नॉक ऑफ कर रहे हो पुराने वाला पेमेंट और वो सामने वाला अभी वाला पेमेंट नॉक ऑफ कर रहा है अभी वाला इनवॉइस, तो फिर
हाँ
तो
हाँ,
मिसमैच हो जाएगा ना दोनों के बुक्स में।
वही वही बात आ रही है। तो वो बोले सर आप खुद नया वाला कर
दैट
दो
यू नीड
एडजस्ट।
टू अग्री विद हिम।
ओके, हम लोग दोनों को लेजर मिलाना पड़ेगा इन अभी,
या
दैट्स इट।
यू हैव टू रिकंसाइल योर लेजर, इसमें लॉ कुछ नहीं करेगा।
लॉ कुछ नहीं करेगा।
लॉ में आप इंटरेस्ट चार्ज कर सकते हो, लॉ बोलता है डिसअलाउंस हो जाएगा, यही दो लॉ है सिंपल।
ओके ओके।
ओके, और कोई? एनीवन एल्स?
आशीष, जस्ट ऑन द क्वेरी अभी जस्ट जो आया, अ काउंटर क्वेरी, बट इनके केस में व्हाट ही इज सेइंग कि जो ओल्ड 10 लाख का पेमेंट है वो फाइनेंशियल ईयर 22-23 का है, करेक्ट? एंड उस पेमेंट पे तो ये एप्लीकेबल है ही नहीं एनीवेज ये लॉ अभी तक, राइट?
करेक्ट।
तो द पार्टी कैन डू दैट।
ये लॉ मतलब इनकम टैक्स एक्ट का लॉ,
हाँ,
एमएसएमई एक्ट तो अप्लाई करता है पहले से ही, वो
या
तो जब
एमएसएमई तो अप्लाई करता है, तो एमएसएमई इज गिविंग यू एन ऑप्शन दैट यू कैन चार्ज इंटरेस्ट, एमएसएमई इज नॉट
करेक्ट
फोर्सिंग यू दैट यू हैव टू चार्ज इंटरेस्ट।
करेक्ट
So,
एज पर लॉ यू आर
yeah,
इंटाइटल्ड टू क्लेम इंटरेस्ट फ्रॉम द पार्टी।
yeah, entitled, but it's not compulsory. So what his query is, as his client is trying to tell him that financial year 22-23 ka I am not paying you the 10 lakhs, and I'm paying you whatever money I am paying you is for the all the payments of 50 lakhs of 23 and 24. So the client can do that legally. Nothing is stopping the client to do that, right?
या
Yeah,
एब्सोल्युटली, क्लाइंट दिखाएगा कि भैया मैं इस इनवॉइस के अगेंस्ट में पेमेंट कर रहा हूं, एंड यू आर
yeah, yeah.
अग्रीइंग टू इट, सिंपल, बोथ द
So,
पार्टीज आर अग्रीइंग टू इट, लेजर
right,
शुड रिकंसाइल।
yeah,
लेजर
I
अगर
know.
रिकंसाइल नहीं होगा तो सामने वाले को प्रॉब्लम होगा, क्योंकि सामने
Correct,
वाले
correct.
को टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट बोलेगा कि सामने वाला पार्टी को बोल रहा है ये पुराना साल का आपने पेमेंट किया था, इस साल का
Yeah. So I
तो
think
सामने
भैया,
वाले के हाथ में सलामत हो जाएगा बाद में।
correct, correct. So भैया, I think this clarifies your question. Like the client can do what he's asking you to do, right?
इसमें एक और चीज है, अगर इनवॉइस में जीएसटी था, वो बोल रहा है कि उस समय का पेमेंट नहीं किया, तो उसका तो उस समय जीएसटी का इनपुट भी नहीं मिलेगा उसको।
हाँ, वो जीएसटी तो अलग आ जाएगा क्वेरी, करेक्ट।
नहीं,
तो
but
वो तो
again, the question comes back कि फाइनेंशियल ईयर 22-23 का जो जीएसटी का था, उस टाइम तक तो दिस पर्टिकुलर लॉ इज नॉट
ना ना, ये तीनों लॉ अलग अलग है, ये तीनों लॉ अलग है। एमएसएमई एक्ट
ओके।
अलग है, जीएसटी अलग है, इनकम टैक्स अलग है। इनकम टैक्स का जो 43B अभी एमएसएमई में इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया, दैट इज फॉर फाइनेंशियल ईयर 23-24। इसमें जो ड्यू होगा, जो पेमेंट नहीं हुआ, वो डिसअलाउ हो जाएगा। जो
करेक्ट।
इस पीरियड में जो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट होगा इस पीरियड का बिल्स के लिए, वो डिसअलाउ हो जाएगा।
हम्म।
और जो भैया ने बोला कि वो 43B जो पुराना साल का बिल था, उसके लिए वो इंटरेस्ट चार्ज कर सकते हैं अभी भी, एक नोटिस देके विद ऑल बिल्स एंड
हाँ,
ऑल, कि आपने ये पेमेंट नहीं किया है। और अगर वो बोलते हैं कि नहीं हमने पेमेंट कर दिया है, और अगर वो करेंट बिल को ड्यू दिखा रहे हैं, तो वो उसका हेडेक है, वो
करेक्ट।
मतलब सप्लायर का हेडेक नहीं है, वो बायर का हेडेक है।
तो बायर का हेडेक, एग्रीड, या।
अच्छा आशीष, टेल मी वन थिंग।
क्या?
ये जैसे मेरे जो भी डेटर बुक में जितने भी डेटर्स हैं, तो वो एमएसएमई रजिस्टर्ड हैं या नहीं है, ये असर्टेन करना किसकी लाइबिलिटी बनती है? मेरी बनती है लाइबिलिटी इस जगह पे?
As a KYC, we should make a SOP that all vendors, you should formally send an email to them or any written correspondence, whatever is convenient to you, wherein you mention that I request you to kindly suggest whether you are a MSME registered under MSME Act or not, whether you are a trader, whether you are a micro enterprise, a small or medium enterprise. क्योंकि वो अपना अगर उद्यम रजिस्ट्रेशन दे देता है या सर्टिफिकेट दे देता है, then you will be able to understand whether it is an MSME or not, under which category it is falling. अगर वो नहीं देता है, तो at least you should have a written correspondence with them formally, because otherwise you will not get to know whether they are registered under MSME or not until unless you have their registration number and certificate with you.
नहीं, what
But primary onus is on you to ask and send a written confirmation, because later on क्या होगा, आपने पूछा, सामने वाले ने नहीं दिया, और बाद में टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट आपके पास आएगा, बोलेगा कि आपने सामने वाले से पूछा था क्या कि एमएसएमई है, आप एमएसएमई हो कि नहीं.
ओके, लाइक जैसे
Yeah.
व्हाट्सएप के थ्रू अगर भेज दिया जाए सारा ये इंटीमेशन, इज दैट गुड इनफ एज एन इंटीमेशन? सभी को भेज दिया गया व्हाट्सएप के थ्रू कि आप बता दीजिए आप एमएससी में रजिस्टर्ड हो या नहीं?
हाँ, देखो अल्टीमेटली क्या होगा ना, एंड ऑफ द डे आप प्रैक्टिकल सिनेरियो समझो, आपने भेज दिया आज के डेट में, ठीक है ना, सामने वाले ने रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं किया,
हाँ हाँ
आपके पास एक ग्राउंड हो गया कि मेरे को तो पता ही नहीं था सामने वाला एमएसएमई है, इसलिए मैंने पेमेंट नहीं किया, इसलिए मैंने आई हैव नॉट डिसअलाउड एनीथिंग इन माय रिटर्न ऑफ इनकम. Later on what will happen, your file is picked up for a scrutiny, and at that point of time income tax officer gets the information that you have 100 vendors, out of those 100 vendors 50 vendors are registered under MSME for whom you have not done the payment within the due date, and for which you have not done the payment, and you have also claimed deduction for those in your return of income. तो वो क्या करेगा उस समय, वो आपका सारा एडिशन कर देगा आपके इनकम टैक्स में.
ओके
तो लाइबिलिटी आपके ऊपर आ जाएगी सारी की सारी. तो प्राइमरी ओनर्स आपके ऊपर है टू गेट द कंफर्मेशन फ्रॉम योर वेंडर्स कि आप एमएसएमई हो कि नहीं हो.
ओके, ओनर्स हमारे पे ही है कुल मिला के.
यस,
मतलब
बिकॉज
जो
इट
भी
विल इम्पैक्ट यू ओनली डाउन द लाइन.
नहीं, सेलर का कोई ऐसे मतलब लाइक कोई फॉर्मेट नहीं है कि इनवॉइस में उसको लिख के देना पड़ेगा? लाइक इट वाज जस्ट अ हियर से कि मतलब अगर इनवॉइस में इफ इट्स नॉट मेंशन्ड कि एमएसएमई रजिस्टर्ड है, सो यू कैन प्रिज्यूम कि
एमएसएमई
ही इज
एक्ट
नॉट
का
रजिस्टर्ड.
एमएसएमई एक्ट जब आया था 2006 में, उस समय भी
हाँ
एक
हाँ
नोटिफिकेशन आया था कि जो वेंडर्स एमएसएमई में रजिस्टर्ड है, in all their correspondence they should mention the MSME registration number, like we mentioned PAN
राइट.
number, GST number in all our correspondence as per the law. तो वो एमएसएमई में सिंस देयर वाज नो इम्पैक्ट एज सच, किसी ने वो फॉलो नहीं किया आज तक.
ओके.
बिकॉज एमएसएमई रजिस्टर्ड करने से कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं था ना आज तक में, मतलब देयर वाज नो मॉनेटरी इम्पैक्ट पर से.
हाँ,
नाउ
तो हम
देयर
ये
इज अ
बोल
मॉनेटरी इम्पैक्ट बिकॉज ऑफ दिस डिसअलाउंस.
तो वी कैन नॉट एस्केप जस्ट बाय सेइंग कि इनवॉइस में लिखा हुआ नहीं था, तो आई डिडंट क्वेश्चन हिम वेदर ही इज रजिस्टर्ड और नॉट.
यस, वो तो हमें 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 एफर्ट देख करके अपने हर वेंडर से कंफर्मेशन मंगाना होगा.
ओनर्स हमारे पे ही है.
नहीं तो प्रॉब्लम हमें होगी हमारी टैक्स स्क्रूटनी में लेटर पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम में.
गॉट इट. गॉट इट.
या
अच्छा, एक चीज और बताओ, ये लाइक हाउ अबाउट द ऑडिट फीस ऑफ सीएस, प्रोविजन फॉर ऑडिट फीस ऑफ सीएस, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स, इसका डिडक्शन मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा अगर सीए एमएसएमई रजिस्टर्ड है?
ये एमएसएमई रजिस्टर्ड है तो सेम सिचुएशन फॉलो होगा.
नहीं, फॉर 2024 जो एंड हो रहा है, प्रोविजन तो हम अभी कर लेते हैं,
हाँ,
बिल तो रेज होता है जब ऑडिट होने के बाद में, तो वो अलाउड होगा ये वाला सिचुएशन में? पेमेंट तो बाद में ही होगा.
आपको वो खर्चा अदरवाइज भी नहीं मिलेगा.
कम अगेन?
You will not be able to claim the expense otherwise also because you have not complied with the TDS provisions also. तो वहां पर भी डिसअलाउंस ट्रिगर कर जाता है.
ओके ओके, गॉट इट.
Even though not 100% disallowance, 30% disallowance होता है as per section 40A, but यहाँ पर भी MSME अगर registered है सामने वाला, if you are claiming it as expense and it is MSME, you have done the provision, it is applicable to all the provisions. If all the provisions are being done with respect to vendors who are MSME registered, all the provisions will be disallowed.
ओके.
So you have to be very careful with respect to any provisioning done in the books of account as on 31st March. One is the TDS impact, second is the section 43B impact with respect to all the MSME payments.
नहीं, टीडीएस तो ऑफकोर्स हम डिडक्ट भी करेंगे, हम पेमेंट भी कर लेंगे. जस्ट आस्किंग लाइक स्पेशली ऑडिट फीस को लेके थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन है कि ऑडिट फीस अगर 25,000 रुपए देने हैं मुझे, वो नॉर्मली तो मैं
कोई
अक्टूबर या
एक्सेप्शन
नवंबर
नहीं
में
है, कोई एक्सेप्शन नहीं है. अगर सामने वाला सीए फॉर्म रजिस्टर्ड है एमएसएमई में, उसने आपको सर्टिफिकेट या डिक्लेरेशन दे दिया है उद्यम का, देन यू हैव मैंडेटरी रिक्वायर्ड टू पे. तो सीए लोग को जल्दी मिल जाएगा ऑडिट फीस.
नहीं, बट ऑडिट होने के बाद फीस मिलेगी ना. वही नॉर्मली क्या करते हैं, प्रोविजन पहले कर लेते हैं कि ऑडिट फीस लगेगी. दैट विल बी इन द मंथ ऑफ मे बी सितंबर. सो दिस ईयर क्या करें, जस्ट टू बी
उसमें क्या होगा ना, उसमें दूसरा पॉइंट ये आप समझो, आपने प्रोविजन कर लिया, ठीक है ना.
हाँ हाँ.
अब उस पर्टिकुलर एक्सपेंस के लिए सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस या डिलीवरी ऑफ गुड्स वो तो कंप्लीट हुआ ही नहीं है.
एग्जैक्टली.
वहां पर टीडीएस का प्रोविजन तो ट्रिगर करेगा ही, बट यहाँ पर आप एमएसएमई लॉ में ये पर्टिकुलर अंडरस्टैंडिंग के बेसिस पर आप जा सकते हो.
ओके. जस्ट टू बी ऑन द सेफर साइड प्रोविजन ना करें ऑडिट फीस का स्पेशली.
नहीं, प्रोविजन तो करना ही होगा.
प्रोविजन किए बगैर तो आप आगे बढ़ ही नहीं सकते.
एकदम एक्सपेंस में क्लेम तो नहीं कर पाएंगे.
प्रोविजन करो, बट आप ये लीगल इंटरप्रिटेशन जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ उसको लेकर के चलो ना. आपको 45 डेज के अंदर पेमेंट करने का ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं है.
हाँ, इसमें बिकॉज इट इज अ प्रोविजन, इट इज नॉट एन एक्सपेंस जो हम लोग क्लेम कर रहे हैं, हम लोग उसका लाइबिलिटी भी वहां क्रिएट कर रहे हैं. तो आई बिलीव दैट्स व्हाई 45 डेज का एप्लीकेबिलिटी डेट ऑफ सप्लाई वाला चीज आएगा ही नहीं इसमें.
हाँ. सो मैं सीए के नाम पे एक प्रोविजन रेज कर देता हूँ 25,000 रुपए का. जो भी टीडीएस की एप्लीकेबिलिटी जो भी रहेगी वो देख लेंगे. बट एक्चुअल पेमेंट में भी अक्टूबर में होगा उसका.
राइट.
तो इस ईयर में क्लेम कर पाऊंगा उसे.
हाँ, तो ये प्रोविजन बोल के तो आप क्लेम कर ही सकते हो. वहां पे बोल रहा है कि एक्सपेंस हो गया है 15 डेज में, आपने अगर पेमेंट नहीं किया तब आप क्लेम नहीं कर पाओगे. इफ आई एम राइट, आशीष भाई कैन करेक्ट मी.
देखो, पहला चीज, आपका ड्यू डेट एज पर एमएसएमई क्या फॉलो होगा. आपका रेंडेशन ऑफ सर्विसेज कब कंप्लीट हुआ? अगस्त में.
राइट. 6 में, अभी तो 6 महीने बाद होंगे काइंड ऑफ.
6 महीने बाद हुआ. रेंडिशन ऑफ सर्विसेज अगर अगस्त में कंप्लीट हुआ और अगस्त में आपने सितंबर में पेमेंट कर दिया विद इन 15 डेज और 30 डेज और 45 डेज जो भी है आफ्टर कंप्लीशन ऑफ सर्विसेज, आपका अप्रूवल कब हुआ? ऑडिट फीस ये बताओ मुझे.
कम अगेन, ऑडिट फीस
अप्रूवल कब हुआ? अभी हम लोग दूसरे डिस्कशन में चले जाएंगे इसको लेकर के. ऑडिट फीस आपने प्रोविजन तो कर लिया बुक्स में, आपका अक्रूवल कब हुआ?
अक्रूवल तो नेक्स्ट ईयर में हुआ हिसाब
तो
से.
फिर आप पुराने साल में क्लेम ही कैसे कर रहे हो खर्चा?
नहीं,
ये सब डिस्कशंस बहुत लेंथ में वो होता रहता ऑडिट फीस को लेकर के.
हाँ, मतलब बिकॉज इट रिलेट्स टू द पीरियड जिसपे हम अकाउंटिंग कर रहे हैं, इस कारण से वो लोग हम प्रोविजन कर लेते हैं. अभी ये एमएसएमई के चक्कर में मुझे समझ में नहीं आता कि क्लेम करें या ना
रिलेट्स टू द पीरियड, but ultimately accrual has not happened with respect to those services.
yes.
सर्विस रेंडर तो मार्च के बाद ही हो सकता है ना.
हाँ,
तो वो
हाँ.
एम्बिग्युइटी रहेगी उसमें हमेशा ऑडिट फीस के रेस्पेक्ट में.
तो आपकी तरफ से कोई क्लैरिटी आई है सीए इंस्टीट्यूट की तरफ से कि क्या करना चाहिए इसमें?
नहीं, इसको लेके कोई स्पेसिफिक क्लैरिटी अभी तक नहीं है.
क्योंकि अपने तो छोटा काम है, तो 25,000 50,000 देते हैं ऑडिट फीस. बड़ी बड़ी कंपनी तो लाखों रुपए ऑडिट फीस देती है. अगर उनका राइट ऑफ हो जाएगा तो उनके तो 30% टैक्स जरूर से लग जाना है उस पर.
नहीं, इसका अभी तक कोई क्लैरिटी नहीं है भैया.
ठीक है, टैक्स तो लग जाएगा बट नेक्स्ट ईयर डिडक्शन मिल जाएगा फिर से.
बट लेकिन इसमें कोई क्लैरिटी वाला चीज है नहीं. जैसा आशीष भाई ने बताया कि इसमें मतलब हम लोग का चीज तो सब सप्लाई वगैरह सब अगस्त सितंबर में जाके हो रहा है.
करेक्ट.
तो इसमें वो होगा ही नहीं.
ओके.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Shyam, I would like
Manish
to
भैया,
ask.
बोलिए.
I would like to ask one thing कि कोई कारण से जनवरी फरवरी मार्च में ये एमएसएमई आने के बाद में न तो पेमेंट मिला और न ही पुराने जो पेमेंट्स मेरे को करने थे मैं कर पाया, तो उस एक्ट में क्या पेनल्टी आएगा?
क्या नहीं, आप पेमेंट नहीं कर पाए
न तो हम पेमेंट ले पाए ना पेमेंट दे पाए, बिकॉज दोनों तरफ से मार्केट यही बोल रहा था कुछ अमेंडमेंट आएगा तो अपने देख लेंगे।
आप ट्रेडर नहीं हो ना, पहला बात।
नहीं, MSME में हम रजिस्टर्ड है।
ट्रेडर नहीं हो आप,
नो, मैन्युफैक्चरर है।
मैन्युफैक्चरर है। आप देखिए, पहला चीज, आप जिसको भी पेमेंट करना है, आपको सामने वाला वेंडर रजिस्टर्ड है एमएसएमई में कि नहीं, आपको पता करना होगा।
हाँ, रजिस्टर्ड है।
और आपको उसको 45 दिन या 15 दिन जो ड्यू डेट है उसके अंदर में पेमेंट करना होगा।
तो हम लोग का सिस्टम ही था 90 डेज का मिनिमम, और ऊपर से हम लोग तो 120 दिन का लेके चल रहे थे रेगुलर।
वो प्रॉब्लम होगी आपको, आपका डिसअलावेंस हो जाएगा, वो खर्चा नहीं मिलेगा आपको इस साल में, अगर आपको 90 दिन बाद पेमेंट करोगे तो। फाइनेंशियल ईयर के बाद में पेमेंट होगा अगर आफ्टर ड्यू डेट, तो आपको खर्चा नहीं मिलेगा उसका।
तो उसके लिए अब क्या करना चाहिए?
इनकम साइड में कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं है आपके हाथ में, पेमेंट साइड में इम्पैक्ट है आपके हाथ में।
हाँ,
इनकम साइड के लिए कोई एप्लीकेबिलिटी नहीं है यहाँ पर। इनकम साइड में केवल ये है कि आप सामने वाला अगर आपको पेमेंट नहीं देता तो आप उससे इंटरेस्ट चार्ज कर सकते हो
ओके। और वो तो
अंडर
वैसा
एमएसएमई
वर्षा
एक्ट।
हो जाएगा, वो कंपनी भी हमसे चार्ज कर सकती है।
एकदम कर सकती है।
ओके ओके, थैंक यू।
वेलकम भैया।
Good, Ashish, it was very nice hearing you. Proceed to
थैंक यू
Shyam.
भैया।
एनीवन एल्स, और किसी को पूछना है? इफ नॉट, देन वी शैल रैप इट अप। आशीष भाई, एनीथिंग मोर?
अली एक क्वेश्चन है, लास्ट
हाँ,
क्वेश्चन।
हाँ।
सपोज जैसे कि अब मैं बीच में इंटरनेट चला गया था, आपने बोला कि एमएसएमई के सर्टिफिकेट हम लोग ओवर द ईमेल ले लें, बट इन चांस किसी के नहीं लिए, बट उसके इनवॉइस में एमएसएमई नंबर नहीं दिया हुआ है, विच इज मैंडेटरी एज पर एमएसएमई एक्ट, तो उस केस में उस वेंडर को क्या ट्रीट करेंगे, एमएसएमई या नॉन एमएसएमई?
एमएसएमई, आपके पास नंबर है तो आप जाकर के डाउनलोड
नहीं,
कर
अगर
लो ना
नंबर नहीं
सर्टिफिकेट।
है तो, नंबर नहीं है तो उसमें वो बोल रहा हूँ।
अगर आपके पास नंबर नहीं है तो देखो, आप सामने वाले से डिटेल्स नहीं ले रहे हो तो रिस्क आपके ऊपर ही है, क्योंकि आपकी इनकम टैक्स की फाइल व्हेनेवर इट इज पिक्ड अप फॉर स्क्रूटनी, दे विल क्वेश्चन दैट कि आपने पेमेंट एमएसएमई को नहीं किया था इस तारीख में। उस समय तक पता चल जाएगा कि वो एमएसएमई है कि नहीं।
नहीं, अब जैसे कि उसके इनवॉइस में एमएसएमई नंबर नहीं दिया हुआ है, तो उस केस में क्या ये प्रिज्यूम किया जाएगा? अगर वो एमएसएमई रजिस्टर्ड है तो उसको फिर भी तो मैंडेटरी है एमएसएमई नंबर अपना इनवॉइस में लिखना, वो तो उसका एक पार्ट हो गया। जैसे कि जीएसटी इनवॉइस में एक रहता है कि ये सारा कंटेंट रहना चाहिए, एमएसएमई एक्ट में भी उसका लिखा हुआ है कि उसका इनवॉइस में एमएसएमई
यस
नंबर रहना जरूरी है। अगर
यस,
नहीं लिखा हुआ है तो उस बिल को क्या एमएसएमई एक्ट में काउंट किया जाएगा या नहीं?
एमएसएमई एक्ट में बाउंड किया जाएगा कि नहीं, दैट इज अ डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन, बिकॉज वहां पर कोई रिस्क या पेनल्टी नहीं है। अल्टीमेटली इशू हमारे एंड पे है, क्योंकि हम पेमेंट कर रहे हैं उस वेंडर को, और सामने वाले वेंडर से अगर हम डिक्लेरेशन नहीं लेते हैं एमएसएमई का, तो बाद में इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट मेरे हाथ में डिसअलावेंस करेगा जिस खर्चे का जो हमने क्लेम कर लिया नेसेसरली।
समझ गया मैं।
So you need to be conservative. You need to be careful about this. Onus is on you to ensure that all your vendors are either registered or not registered. You get a written confirmation from them.
श्योर, थैंक यू।
Yeah.
ये आशीष भैया, एक चीज और बताइए ना मुझे। मेरा जो सप्लायर है उसके प्राइमरी दो पार्ट ऑफ बिजनेस है, वन इज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड वो चाइना से माल मंगा के फैब्रिक भी बेचता है हम लोगों को, तो विच इज पार्ट ऑफ ट्रेडिंग हिल।
Yeah.
तो अगर उसका कोई इनवॉइस है विच इज पार्ट ऑफ ट्रेडिंग, तो मैं डिक्लेरेशन लूं, इज दैट गुड इनफ, या फिर उस जगह पे भी कंफ्यूजन हो सकता है रिगार्डिंग आईटी?
अभी तक लॉ इस पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन को क्लैरिफाई नहीं किया है डेफिनेटली, और आईटी के पर्सपेक्टिव से आप अगर बोलोगे कि वो मेरा ट्रेडिंग टर्नओवर है सामने वाली वेंडर का, तो आप सामने वाले से डिक्लेरेशन ले लो कि दिस फॉर्म्स पार्ट ऑफ माय ट्रेडिंग टर्नओवर, दिस इज नॉट रिलेटिंग टू मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और सर्विस एक्टिविटी, एंड आई एम परफॉर्मिंग आई एम ओनली परफॉर्मिंग माय फंक्शंस एज अ ट्रेडर विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दिस पर्टिकुलर इनवॉइस। ये डिक्लेरेशन लेकर के आप उस पर्टिकुलर पोजीशन को आगे लेकर के चल सकते हो। वी कैन फाइट इट आउट अंडर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट अगेन,
वो अलाउड
बिकॉज
है ना?
ट्रेडर के लिए ये पोजीशन लिया जा रहा है आज की डेट में।
ओके ओके, ग्रेट ग्रेट, थैंक यू।
वेलकम।
Okay, so I think we can wind up. President sir.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we should. Already बहुत time हो गया.
Already हम लोग 1 सवा घंटा सोचे थे, but good that people participated and
interaction हो रहा था सबका, and people were active. It's not कि dummy mode में पड़ा था पूरा session.
Right. बहुत अच्छा से हुआ. So, being secretary, I'll try to propose a formal vote of thanks. So, first of all, thank you to all the participants who took time out from their busy schedule on a Sunday afternoon. I know it's a lazy day, but आप लोग ने आया and participate किया in good numbers. That was very encouraging for both the speaker and us. हम लोग ऐसे ही और sessions आगे continue करते रहेंगे. We expect good participation from you all. Thank you to the speaker, Ashish Agarwal ji, our trustee and member of 2000 batch. Very informative, very lucid, and काफी अच्छे से उन्होंने explain किया both the MSME Act as well as the Income Tax Act part. So, which was and I think सबको जो confusion था या जो clarity चाहिए था वो ज्यादा अच्छे से मिला होगा. To go forward, हम लोग अभी NPL को लेके आगे बढ़ रहे हैं. NPL इंडोर आप लोग को पता ही होगा. उसके अलावा वी आर ऑल्सो ऑन द वर्ज ऑफ फाइनलाइजिंग द इन्वेस्टर मीट वेरी सून. इसके अलावा हम लोग और 2-3 प्रोग्राम पाइपलाइन में रखे हैं related to singing, related to other parts. So once we are through with the dates, we'll float it in the group and expect everyone to please join hands. So that's it from our side. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ashish Bhaiya.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Enjoy your weekends.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks.